Just telling everybody we don't want to pick up any background noise.
All right. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Human Factor, the LinkedIn Live of Inc. and Fast Company. I'm Eric Schurenberg, the CEO of Inc. and Fast Company. Our guest today is an extraordinary entrepreneur, leader, and a true groundbreaker, figuratively and literally. Deryl McKissack is the founder, chairwoman, and CEO of McKissack and McKissack, a $30 million architecture, engineering, and construction company that manages over $15 billion in projects nationwide and has had a hand in the design, construction, and/or rehabilitation of some of the nation's most notable landmarks, including the National Museum of African American History and Culture on the National Mall, the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial, the Lincoln and Jefferson Memorials, the U.S. Treasury Building, the George H.W. Bush Library, and O'Hare Airport in Chicago, just to name a few. On top of all that, she is a Black woman in an industry overwhelmingly led by white men, the heir to a family tradition of Black architects and builders that goes back to the 18th century. And she's also one of the most determined and inspiring people I've ever had on the show. And she's also, I hasten to add, the winner of one of Inc.'s 2020 Best in Business Awards, given to founders who have had a superlative effect on their industry, their community, or society as a whole. Deryl, you check all those boxes. Welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Eric. It's a pleasure to be here today.
McKissack and McKissack is a company that you started, but the building trades run in your family for a long, long time. And it started with a man that we now know as Moses McKissack, who came to this country against his will from Ghana in 1790 and started the family tradition of building. Tell us about Moses and how this tradition passed down from him to your father, William, and who was his great-grandson.
Okay, so my great-great-grandfather, Moses, was a slave, and he came here in 1790. And he was a slave to one of the large contractors in the United States named McKissack. And of course, he was given that name. He was taught the trade of to be a carpenter and a master builder. And he also brought from his country how to make bricks. And so he was able to buy his freedom by actually selling bricks during his lifetime. But he passed the trade of building down to my great-grandfather, who also became a master carpenter. And he passed the trade of construction to my grandfather and my great-uncle. And they started our family business in Tennessee in 1905, making us the oldest African-American architectural firm in the country. And that business was passed to my father. And he had 3 girls, and he used to take us to school and take us to work with him on Saturdays. And so from the time we were 6 years old, we've been drawing drawings. He would prop us up on his drawing boards, and we would just draw during the day. And that's been our life.
Well, that is an incredible tradition, but did you ever have an urge to sort of branch out and become, an actor, an accountant, or just something not in the construction trades?
Not really. I've just always really liked it. I love the seeing drawings turn into real buildings, coming to life. When I mean coming to life is people in them and actually using them. And it's always just been in my blood. Now, I used to always try to play with him if I didn't get my way on certain things. And I would say, I think I'm going to be a doctor. But I always liked the math and sciences. And so, I think this is just what I was born to do. I love my job every day. And I have to apologize right now for my dog.
There must be someone at the door, right? I've had that
It's
myself.
probably his dog walker, and so he gets excited.
Oh, oh, well, this is life in a Zoom pandemic.
I apologize.
No, not to worry. It's so incredibly authentic.
I'm actually
Um,
glad to be here today. I got stuck in the elevator this morning.
oh, wow, you did. But so what floor do you live on?
The 32nd
Yeah,
floor.
that would have been a long walk.
Yeah, but I just
Yeah,
wanted to get
assuming
out to
you
make
even got
sure I made it to your show.
out. All right. Let's go back. So we've been through the storied history of your family and an incredible tradition that is handed down through so many generations. But then you started your own firm, and you did it. Well, you weren't exactly flush with venture capital money. What what gave you the courage, the impetus to do that?
I just had this burning passion on the inside that I just wanted to try something on my own, and I didn't know if it would make it or not. Um, but I just felt like I just wanted my own little red wagon that I could push to the right, push to the left, run off a cliff. Okay, if it just so happens. It was kind of an experiment, but also there was a lot of push behind it, that inertia from inside that was just saying, this is what you need to do. And it worked out.
So it did. Yeah, so it did. Yeah, I think some people are just born to be entrepreneurs. There's always a question that is much debated at Inc. 5000 conferences is, can entrepreneurs be trained or are they born? I would say that you were one of the ones who was born.
Yeah, I think I was born to be an entrepreneur. I was born to be in this kind of business. I was born to take no, stare down the barrel of no and make it a yes. You talked about not having any venture capital. Shoot, I couldn't even get a bank.
So
And I remember I had $3,000. A friend asked to borrow two, and I gave him two. And then I had $1,000, and that's literally what is on my incorporation papers in my stock, $1,000. And
yeah,
I figured during that time it was in the 1990s when the construction industry was really doing bad. It was a very low time. In Washington, we only had one building going up on 17th and K, and everybody in the industry would go and look at that building, say, "Oh, one day we'll have another building like this." But I figure, in the big companies like SOM, they were reducing staff. I mean, they went from they probably reduced their staff 50 to 70%. And I know big businesses that went out of business. And I just said to myself, well, I mean, I'm already starting at the ground floor. Maybe I'm in the basement. There is nowhere else for me to go but up. So,
a lot of great companies get started in recessions because the founders have guts or don't know what they're getting into or some combination of the above. And out of that, as the economy recovers, they actually get kind of a tailwind. How did you land your first customer?
well, that's an interesting story. So I went to one of our universities,
Uh-huh.
um, and because I had worked at Howard University, I was the president's executive assistant, and I ran all the facilities there. So I felt like I had a connection with universities. So I said, well, let me start there. I literally put together a list of 300 people across all industries that I needed to meet and tell them that I was going into business. And actually, by the time I got through the first 150, I had so much work, I never got to the other 150. But my first project, I went to a presentation. The table was all men, and I had my little flywheel presentation. People that probably don't remember this, the young people on this viewing this tape, but I when I finished the presentation, the head guy looked at me and he said, "Little lady, there is nothing you can do for us." And I looked at him And I grabbed his hand and I looked him in the eye and I said, thank you. This has been so wonderful. And I am looking forward to working with you. I just can't wait till I'm working with you. And I appreciate your time. And I left there and I walked around that campus for 2 hours and I talked about which building I was going to be working on. And about 6 months later, one of the guys sitting around the table called me and he said, you know, you were so gracious in how you were treated that day. And he said, I'm the boss now. That guy was nasty and he was like promoted out. And he said, I have a small job for you. Can you come over here and let's talk about it? And that was my first job.
Wow. What a great story. Talk about entrepreneurial resilience and and kind of entrepreneurial jujitsu, turning that kind of blow into something positive. Pretty nice. Well,
Yeah.
so that was the beginning.
Go ahead.
What was the big break?
Oh, my big break? I would say it was Treasury.
Tell us.
I had the opportunity to meet Secretary Rubin under the Clinton administration at a reception. And so, I told him, I said, it would just be so great if I could do some work with Treasury. And so he introduced me to the head of procurement at Treasury. And so when I met the guy, I went to go meet him. And then after that, every 2 weeks, I would go to his office and ask him for work. And during those days, you didn't have to go through all the security to get through a government building and all of that. This was prior, September 11th and all of that. So I was able to just walk into the Treasury building and I would walk in every 2 weeks. And I did that for 2 years, Eric. Finally, one day I walked in and he said, I am so tired of seeing you. He said, somebody in here, give her some work. So they gave me a small job to do some design reviews on an electrical distribution system that they were putting in. And I was so happy. So that night, I got home around 10:30 at night and the phone rang and this guy says, can I speak to Mr. McKissack? And I said, he's dead. And I started laughing on the telephone. I said, okay, who is this playing jokes on me today? What other joke do you have to tell me? And they said, well, this is the Secret Service. I said, oh, yeah, right. And then they said, no, lady, this is a Secret Service. I said, Well, I'd had a couple of glasses of wine because I was celebrating, my new contract. So I'm laughing on the phone and he says, lady, the Treasury building is on fire. I said, it is not on fire. I just left downtown and I didn't see any smoke. So he said, well, why don't you turn on your television? So I turned on the TV. There was a Treasury building going up in smoke. And now I'm backpedaling because I'm scared because I'm talking to the Secret Service. And I said, okay, this really is the Secret Service. How can I serve my country? And so he said, well, we're looking for Deryl McKissack and we need him to get down here right away. And I said, that's me. So I ran down there. The fire department was literally coming out of the building and they had yellow tape. And I said, can I borrow the yellow tape? And they let me have it. And so I taped off Treasury and they're telling, because I wanted to keep my competitors out. And so the head of procurement met me there. My car's parked out front. We're on a laptop computer on my hood. And he says, okay, I got to get back in this building. Oh, I'm sorry. What happened was the Treasury building was putting on a new roof. They used to have, GSA pretty much runs their contracts. The roofer had a blowtorch to start the roof on fire. So now they've got this huge fire. The secretary's cash room is a mess. The library, all of this was under the roof that was burning. So it's all messed up. And so the secretary said, I don't want GSA to touch my building. Is there anybody that has a contract directly with Treasury? And I was the only person. So that's why they called me.
Uh-huh.
And so anyway, so I ended up getting a contract to get them back stable again in the building. But then as I was walking through the building, I realized there was a lot of things that weren't operating efficiently, and they were not even as a Treasury Department operating efficiently because of how their space was laid out. So I put together a whole plan to renovate the building. And the secretary said, okay. So for 12 years, I was doing a major renovation, and it started at $200 million. So that was a major break, and that hit the newspapers and ENR and really turned us around, because up to that point it was kind of funny because I wasn't really into accounting and all that kind of stuff. But I walked in one day and my accountant, this is right before Treasury happened, and my accountant said, I have some news. I think you should sit down. I said, okay. So I sat down. She says, I think we're insolvent. And I looked at her, kind of a blank stare, and I said, I don't know what that means, but I'm not it. It doesn't sound good, so I know I'm not it. So I walked out and I forgot about it. And after this, we went from the red to the black, 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 and it's just been going ever since then. And of course, now I know what insolvency means.
Yeah, well,
It's not a good thing.
Deryl, I've heard some entrepreneurial near death, amazing save stories, but that's got to be the best. That is
Well,
that is amazing, and it took burning down the treasury to do it. I would say that that's a combination. Uh, that's being in the right place at the right time, enabled by incredible persistence and ability to turn many, many no's into a yes. There
yeah.
is no greater entrepreneurial gift than that. Now, one of the many projects of McKissack and McKissack is as I've heard it described, the largest K through 12 construction management program in the country. And the inspiration for you to take that on is another story, and a very telling story about the mission of your company.
Yeah. So it was probably about 15 years ago, or maybe a little longer. And I was asked to speak on a panel in one of the high schools in DC. And so I went, and the school was in really bad shape. But before I went on the panel discussion, I said, well, let me run to the bathroom. When I went in the bathroom, I was just completely shocked at the conditions of this bathroom. And there were um, toilets off the wall. There was, no hanging panels in places. There were no sinks, and it was dim. The mirrors were really gloomy. And so I'm just thinking, like, we were building prisons at that time, which we're not doing now, but we were then. And I just said, how can we expect our women to be true women? And at the time, there was this big saying about yo girls, and I'm like, no wonder they're yo girls, because if they're in these conditions all the time, I mean, what do we expect? And right then and there, I thought about our mission. You know, Prior to that, our mission really, I just sort of borrowed my ancestors' mission, which was to be trustworthy partners with your clients, always to under promise and over deliver, those kind of things. But I realized that our mission needed to tap into universal good for all of mankind. It needed to be much deeper and go past bricks and mortar and
Mhm.
business, but it needed to enhance people's lives. So our mission became to enhance people's lives through the design and construction industry. And eventually, probably a few years later, DC was able to get $5 billion to change our schools, and we won the contract to run that, and it's just grown since then. So we have the largest urban practice, and so that's in the urban areas
Hmm.
with K through 12, and we feel like we have a real mission with
Yeah.
these kids. Yeah.
I want to talk about your personal sense of mission too. And um, as a black woman in a predominantly white male field, you've faced both racism and gender bias. The that procurement officer or Secret Service person asking for Mr. McKissack is just kind of just not surprising. And what's that been like personally? How do you handle it?
um, it's painful sometimes, but it makes me better in other times because I feel like, in our company, we have to exceed expectations. And we really have to strive for excellence, and not just for ourselves, but it's for the minority and women firms that are coming behind us as well, because we don't get a second chance. Large companies, they can have a default, they can do the client wrong, they
Yeah.
can overcharge the client, but it's a safe choice. A client will say, I got this really hard job. And if I pick this majority company over here, they can't say I did the wrong thing. You know what I mean? Even if they mess up.
Right.
Now, if they pick me and I'm my company, and we're probably, I'm not going to say we're always better, but we're equal to and better in many cases. Um, you know, but if something goes wrong, we have to make sure it's fixed. We cannot get a default letter. I don't have any default letters. I've never been fired on a project. I can't let that happen, because if that happened, that would be it for my reputation and all the people coming behind me.
Um,
And unfortunately, no matter how many memorials, monuments, and presidential libraries I have done, I am still under a different scrutiny than my majority counterparts. And I'm always asked, but can you really do it? You
mm,
know,
mm, mm.
right.
That that's confronting, and the burden of knowing that anything that goes wrong might reflect on the people behind you is that's a heavy burden. Tell me about the pandemic and how it's affected your business. Has it been bad for it? Did it stop construction? Did it enable new opportunities for you?
So the pandemic, of course, has been a challenge for everybody, just for the mere numbers of Americans that have lost their lives and the illness and, people in the hospital. So that's already a burden, I feel on everybody. But as a company, I think we stopped and slowed down just to go faster. But we
Uh-huh.
did stop and slow down. And for me, instead of trying to sell the company externally and trying to, have dinner and meet with my clients and all this kind of stuff and meet new clients out there externally, and also doing inspirational speaking to other corporations, I took all of that energy and I turned it inward. And I started um, selling my company internally. So I started spending more time with my staff and being an inspiration to my staff, because I felt like I was responsible in some kind of way. You know, they were still getting paid, because, by the way, you asked me about construction. Construction was considered essential. Okay, so our work continued, but there was a lot of fear and anxiety
Yes, I
in
can.
my staff. I mean, because it was with everybody, but I felt responsible for them. And so I started town hall sessions every 2 weeks to just talk about relevant events, what was going on, try to alleviate some fear. and start talking to him about my inspirational speeches on purpose and how, we have a lot to be grateful for, and because we're grateful, we can be hopeful in this situation where we cannot see the end of the tunnel. I mean, if you think about last March,
Yeah.
I had COVID and I was sick when we decided to go virtual and everything was shut down. I was dealing with having COVID myself, but I did not tell anybody. I got up every day and I put my makeup on and I got on the screen and I act like had not been up all night. But it's a very bad disease and it makes you stay up all night. But I felt like I had to inspire and talk to these people. And so that's what I did, and I'm still doing it today. We completely enhanced our culture that way. We believe in a humble, hungry, and smart environment. We believe that we want healthy people to show up to work every day because that makes a healthy team, which makes a healthy department and a healthy company and a healthy community, right? And so I felt as the more I could inspire my staff, the more they could inspire the people around them, their families, their communities, and whatever.
Wow.
And so that's what COVID has been for me. It's been really rewarding though. I'd have to say in that regard. Yes, I've lost some people that were close and dear to me to the disease. Um, but the time that I've had with my staff and the growth that we've had and personal growth with people, it's been great.
Um, you're fully recovered and fine now, I hope.
Oh yeah, I it was 3 weeks. It took me
Oh my God.
really 6 weeks to get back to normal, and I was all alone because I just was. I came to Miami for a an event where I thought I got it, and then I had to stay here. I couldn't go anywhere. So, but it was, I made it. I think, and what helped me make it is that I felt like I had to get up every day and do something for my staff.
I think that is an inflection point in many entrepreneurs' journey when they pass the point where they see themselves as a builder or depending on their business, a software engineer or a salesperson or the things that got them launched and realize that they're the leader of a company and that their job is to watch out for all those souls who work for them. And that is difficult for many people who really kind of want to get their hands dirty in that company, but it is an essential part of the evolution of a leader. Well, lucky for your company that you handled that so gracefully, Daryl. Can I ask you, what would you say is your kind of special superpower as a boss?
God, I wake up every morning and I pray
Uh,
and I meditate over what are the important things for me to do that day. Of course, I always have a list of things to do, but I'm never going to finish that list. I'm never going to finish that list. So I ask, what are the important things to do today? And what should I do to inspire others today? And so that is my morning, and I'm guided by that. So my day may change. It may be, I gotta do this because I've got to talk to these people today. Um, every one of my town halls, I personally write a message for my staff. I was meeting with my leadership every single day during COVID. Now we've
uh,
gone to 3 days a week, but every morning at 9, I was there talking to them. So I think it's my deep faith that gets me through and tells me I can do anything, and as long as I'm on my purpose and my destiny, it's for me. No one else can take that away from me. No one can define me. I define myself. My destiny defines me. My past and my future, that defines me. No one can say you're black and you're female and you can't do this and you can't do that. I don't even hear it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people project their fears, their anxieties on you. And if you look a little bit different, it's easier for them to do it. And I've seen it my entire life from a child. So I just keep going on my path, my purpose, and it's working out. And I pray that everybody finds their purpose in life and that they try to stay on it. And the best thing is, if you're not on it, one day you'll get back on it and it'll correct itself and you would not have missed anything. Because you're going to end up where you're supposed to be.
So tell me, what is your destiny?
Well, I think, like I always say, I've been to several promised lands. And what I mean by that is that, like, I started this company as a little red wagon.
Yeah.
And then now, because of all the cities we're in, my senior staff used to say, "Well, we think you strapped some engines on here and added some wings to this little wagon." So, so, so I feel like I am where I want to be. There's a lot more things I think that McKissack can do in the country and maybe globally. We're not looking outside of the country right now. We have done some work out of the country just to enhance people's lives with our music, with our projects. I mean, our landmark projects. Um,
Yeah.
they have been, I would say, they've changed the paradigm of how people think. Um, they talk about, they help us develop our values as a country. Some of the projects that we've worked on,
Yeah.
and I take that stuff really seriously because, and so I'm very honored to be able to work on any of those projects. And I feel like I have a staff that is very sensitive to what those projects mean to America. And so, I'm real happy with that. But we have a lot more of that to do, as well as our kids. We've got a lot more schools that we need to do. We've got a lot more airports that we need to build. We've got a lot of infrastructure, bridges, and water and wastewater that needs to be, upgraded for where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we want to be a part of all of that. So we've got a lot to do. That's my destiny,
That
along with raising my child and getting her out of college. She's in high school.
that sounds good. All right. You mentioned right at the top of the show your mentor. Who is that? And if not your mentor, who's the person who's inspired you most?
So I have several mentors, but my mother has been a big inspiration to me because she took over the business after my father had a stroke. And she was a school teacher with a degree in psychology. She said, I could only spell architecture. But to see her take over the company and run the company for my father, that was very inspirational to me. And then I have, mentors around the country that have all run major businesses. One helps me on work-life balance with my child. Another one is on my board, and she helps me with, corporations and how to deal with them and all that kind of stuff. Um, Another one kind of helps me in my appearance. She could have been a model, but she has a huge business. But she's also great. And one of them helps me on philanthropy. She gets me on boards, art boards, and women boards, and all kinds of things. And so they all are just like a great. I can pick from all of them and come out with something great. And you asked about destiny. Destiny is something you have to be in tune with every day, and it changes. You may not know. Some days you don't know if you're on it or not. But having these great people around you, you know, information and where you should be comes from a lot of different avenues. And and so I just keep myself open. That's the main thing. I keep myself open. We are free. We're supposed to be free beings, free mind, free thinking. So we're open um, to all of these opportunities, and that's how I walk every day.
Yeah, that's great. Let me ask you a question, Daryl, in parting that I ask all the entrepreneurs on the show is, um, entrepreneurship is a rocky road, and you started with a lot of headwinds that were socially imposed on you, and yet you succeeded beyond almost um, anyone's wildest dreams. Why? Looking back on it, why were you one of the ones who made it?
Um, well, I still would go back to destiny, but being persistent. I just never give up. You know, I have some clients that say, Daryl, now I know why you're so successful because you don't make me give you something. You are not giving up.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, you know, I've been knocked down, I've lost money, you know, I have been disappointed, I've gotten unfavorable verdicts, you know, all of that. But, you know, you just have to keep going. It's a breakthrough. It allows you to sit down and say, okay, how can I do this better? And how can I be grateful? Because, first of all, you cannot get angry. That's just wasted energy to me. You know, I like to ball that up in great energy and say, okay, how can I make this better? And if it's for me, I'm going to get it. If it's not for me, I'm not going to get it. And I just go on to the next one and let the universe handle it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is a fantastic attitude. Kind of a great way to leave this show is with that exhortation from Churchill, about what makes people successful, and it is that you never, 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 never give up. That sounds
Well,
like the
the
Daryl
was
story.
during COVID, one of the things we started with in my second town hall was Churchill, who said, "Never let a good crisis go to waste."
Yeah,
And we decided that everybody coming out of COVID at McKissack was going to be better in something.
fantastic.
And I definitely decided that. I mean, you know, it's like, what are you going to do during this time to be better?
All right, what a great place to leave it. Daryl McKissack, thank you so much for being on the show. Uh, for all of you out there watching, thank you for watching. This has been The Human Factor, the LinkedIn Live of Inc. and Fast Company. I'm Eric Schurenberg. Have a good day.
All right, Eric, thanks.
Bye, Daryl.
Bye.